Welcome, everyone, and thank you for joining us today. I'm Corrine Sharp, the host for today's webinar, Defining and Demystifying Artificial Intelligence within the Channel. For those that don't know me, I'm the president of Sharp Perspective. We're a consulting company helping IT organizations with their go-to-market plans with specific emphasis on direct sales through channels and partners. I'm also honored to be the president of the Channel Chiefs Council, the Canadian Channel Chiefs Council, affectionately known as C4, and I'll tell you a little bit more about that in a moment. Before we get started, let's take care of a few housekeeping items for our call today. So we encourage you to submit your questions through the Ask a Question box. You will find that on the left-hand side of your screen. So questions, comments, support, whatever it may be, we love your feedback, so please bring it on. Second, we'll be asking a couple of poll questions during the presentation, so please make sure your pop-up blocker is turned off. And you have an opportunity to participate in this interactive poll, and it gives us an opportunity to better understand your current AI situation and interests so that we can be as relevant as possible. We'll make every effort to finish on time, and we hope you stick around to the end as we have a really hot topic around artificial intelligence today. And also, please take a moment to complete the evaluation form at the end of the webinar. Again, your feedback is really important, and it allows us to design better quality programs for you. So today, I am so pleased to have Dr. Cindy Gordon with us. Cindy is the CEO of SalesChoice, an author of 14 books, and a global thought leader around disruptive technologies. SalesChoice is an AI cognitive sciences and advanced analytics company that specializes in making sales a science. Their vision is to be the #1 predictive and prescriptive cloud company that delivers superior performance improvements to sales professionals globally, something that we can all benefit from. And now with AI being such a hot topic, we are so happy to have Dr. Gordon with us today to share how AI should and will play a very important role within channel organizations. So welcome, Cindy.
Thanks, Corinne. Great to be here with everyone.
Perfect. So now I thought I'd tell you a little bit about C4 before Cindy gets started. And so for those that don't know about the Canadian Channel Chiefs Council, or C4, here's what we're all about. So C4 was created in 2013 to truly be the voice of channel professionals in Canada. So we're a very engaged community of professionals specializing in the channel. And our board consists of channel chiefs from several leading IT manufacturers and software vendors. And our purpose is to promote the profession of channel leadership, including the formalization of the channel chief and channel manager designation or titles. And we do that, we foster best practice sharing, education development, thought leadership, research, and mentorship for the entire channel ecosystem. And we are building our membership across Canada for those looking for channel-focused thought leadership, networking, mentoring, and, as I mentioned, education. The channel's been in my blood for almost my entire career. And early in our careers, people didn't strive to be in the channel, they just landed there, and some of us never left. And so what does it mean for C4 to promote the profession of channel leadership? Well, I remember, and you will remember as well, the MIS manager was the most senior IT role. Then technology began to be far more strategic to organizations. The MIS manager was transformed to the VP of IT and then became the CIO, reporting directly to the CEO of an organization. And channels and partnerships are all about scaling and growing your business through meaningful partnerships. So today, the director of channels is often not considered as senior as the VP of sales. And we believe that the transformation of that partner leader to channel chief is very strategic to organizations who sell or implement through others. And so C4, we are here to elevate channel leadership roles within the IT ecosystem in Canada and beyond borders. We strive to reach as many organizations as possible who are looking to the pioneers of channels, those on our board, to be that council of advice, direction, and that place where channel leaders or those that want to become leaders, they come to find us. So check out channelchiefs.ca if you'd like more information or you'd like to join either at the corporate or the individual level. We'd love to have you join our team. So now the floor, or the phone, I should say, is all yours, Cindy.
Thanks, Corinne, and welcome everyone. We've got a really good mix of folks here that are online, and thank you for joining us. We've got folks from Manulife, I can see. We've got people from different consulting industries, and we've also got some software, and I also noticed a leader from Dell. So, you know, it's really nice to get the variety on these calls. I'm going to move at a pretty fast clip because we've got a fair bit of content to follow. We've also put together a couple of poll questions, so just be alert for those shortly. What I'm going to cover today is I want to sort of set the stage and offer some opening comments, and then I want to just pause and I want to make sure that I define AI in a very simple way. I think it's important some of the baseline terms are there. At a future session, I'd love just to take it a deeper level, but I think for today, just to get to the basics, I am going to paint, I think, a clear picture of the market dynamics and the speed that this market's moving at, so you've got some good facts. I've prepared a few case examples I think that can resonate. Obviously, there's many different use cases by different industries that we could discuss. Given that we've got some people here from Manulife and Dell, I'll probably just ad-lib a little bit from my script because then I've got a little bit more context of who's here. I really want to make sure everybody leaves today with a clear understanding of the leadership of individuals or teams in the whole channel area, because the reality is AI is going to affect everything in the ecosystem. So understanding what you can do, I think, is really important. Having been in the industry now for about 4 years deep into AI, I certainly want to pass along some of the lessons I've learned and also some of the, I think, astute questions that you can frame easily so you don't get lost in all the mumbo-jumbo new language vernacular, because some of the fundamentals still apply, and I really want to make sure I leave you with that practical message. And then hopefully you've got some ideas on questions, so I encourage you to think of them early so you put them out there, and then Corinne can guide me at the end. So let's get underway. So first, if you're following the market, you will know that minus the hype, there's more people listening and watching than doing. So less than 10% of firms globally have deployed AI in a full-scale way. What I mean by that is that there's a leader at the top that's responsible, that there's different use cases across many different lines of business, and it really is, I'd call it a strategic objective of the leadership team, and I underscore the board of directors. So we are still in that infancy stage in many respects, and that's exciting because hopefully we can get this right. Gartner and Forrester, they all have a point of view. I always find it humorous. Some of the stats work, some of them don't. But their latest research really, I think, reinforces that AI is going to be front and central pretty well in everything in terms of some initiative by 2020, and that's not that far away. And AI, as we can see now, is a top investment priority for more than 30% of the CIOs in the market. So let's take a pause now. And are you leading any AI projects in your company? Yes or no? So if you could answer that question, that would be great. And Corinne, if there's anything you want to add there in terms of process, but we can just keep that up on the screen for now.
No, that'll be great. It'll be really interesting to hear from those on the audience because we've got a diverse group of people on what that is looking like for them, whether you're leading any in your company. And it could be because of the information and the stats, are you leading the planning? So are you doing or still in the planning phase, something would land in the yes bucket, I think.
So what the results are showing right now on the little quick poll, looks like we've got 80% are no's, and we've got a few yeses. A few things are coming in. We may come back at the end, but, obviously a few of you are experimenting, and I'm sure Dell is one, and I know Manulife's experimenting. So the others, I'm not sure who you are, but I know there's a couple out there for sure. In terms of defining AI in the market trends as we advance, AI, I think at the basic level, I think it's important to understand it's all about trying to really mimic, and I chose the word mimic, try and be as human as possible in terms of how we learn, how we problem solve, how we see things, our perceptions, because the whole objective of AI and the thesis is that we can get eventually to very, I call it not just aligned, but a co-creation capability that were very, very matched effectively together. And so there's a lot of discussion around this. How far do we go? What are the implications? What are the risks? What are the different methods that can be applied? But fundamentally, without getting into all the technical language, it's all about mimicking human capabilities to be as accurate as possible as a human can be. However, underscoring that reality is it's very important we also understand that the quality of the data and the completeness of it is very important to be able to derive decision making. So, having that mechanism to reflect on the health is so important. The same thing, at the same time, the sophistication of the algorithms are now basically identifying very rapidly, if I can just use the word bluntly, crap, and removing it from any of the assumptions and, putting flags on it. So, just imagine it knows where to find the good highway and constantly is moving the dirt to the side. So, things aren't just dependent anymore on the data quality and completeness. You certainly need some, but by no means do you need 100% anymore. In terms of the market, this is just a quick flash of Gartner. Probably get something similar from Forrester, quite frankly. It's just showing that the interest as folks are doing searches is increasing, and it's about a 10-fold increase. What I'm more captivated by is just being a former venture capitalist, I'm always interested in following the speed of investments that are going into the market. And that's a very significant indicator of the speed that the market's moving at. And just in the last year, it's been around 20 to 30 billion that's gone into acquisitions, and tremendous acquisitions being led by Apple, by Google, by Facebook, by IBM. Salesforce is certainly in the mix. Seems like everybody's got their AI on finding innovations in the market. Some folks are attributing this to be, is this the next gold rush as well? When I was preparing for this, and pardon that looks like the slides somehow may be showing a little bit of wrap. It looks maybe different here than it did yesterday, but apologies for that. But I'll just talk about the texts here. This is a piece of research, and I've indicated on the bottom where the source is from INFOSYS. And I think for some of you don't know, INFOSYS is a very significant global player, a systems integrator. Would be comparative to Accenture, IBM, and the kinds of work that they do, both consulting and outsourcing. But they finished a pretty comprehensive survey. There were well over 1,000 respondents that were in the survey. It was global, which is, I always like global research. But 76% of those respondents felt that AI was fundamental to their success. So we are getting the buoyancy within the boardroom and the C-levels on the value. They may not be able to explain what it is or how, but they are definitely on the cheerleading squad that this is a major underpinning. 39% by 2020 are, committing to anticipate that their business will ramp around 39% in terms of boost and revenue, and also reduce their operating costs. There's going to be a lot of investment into processes that are AI-enabled. 80% of the companies, or 8 in 10 of those organizations, plan to replace, putting in new roles, and also to start redeploying and retraining talent as a result of, what they're expecting will come. Now, on the adoption side, it's kind of funny. You can take any technology innovation wave, and somehow the answers all seem the same. I'm old enough now to have been through a few of these, these sea changes or blue oceans effects. But AI obviously is there to drive and sustain a competitive advantage, sort of being one of the major reasons people are advancing. So again, just I think a reinforcement that a strategic outcome or why are we doing this is always an underpinning. Second on this, and I won't drain this slide, I may have glanced through it already, but AI will move us into new businesses. And I think that's a very important point, because as a result of a major transformational change, we will be reinventing new business models, new ecosystems, And one of the key things for any large organization is that the importance of staying connected with the startup community, because all those investment dollars that I talked about that are out there, there is a huge surgence of innovation going on. And the surgence is going to be more outside the large multinationals and mid-market. It's going to be way more on the outliers and the startups. So building linkages with large organizations, with startups, I think is going to be very, very important to have your ear to the ground very closely. This construct here is kind of a snapshot of some recent work. It sort of was a combination from some of McKinsey's work, some of our experiences, and I want it, and it really does parallel, you know, where do you see the adoption more rapidly in terms of different industry sectors. Consistently, again, we see it in high tech and telecom and financial services, being right at the top of the, I call it the making investments in these areas. And, you know, in the lower end, although I wish it was at the higher end, we see education. And if there's a market that needs to be investing that can really help our children and our world. And so obviously I'm concerned about that signal. On terms of the characteristics of the early adopters right now, they are digitally savvy in the sense they've absorbed the convergence. They understand the need to have integrated value chains moving back and forth. And so they've been really working on their work process to be, you know, far more digitally alert, nor in the channels. You know, I know we always talk about omni-channel capability across all those different groups, but having the connection so we can communicate and collaborate in very effective ways. I think the other factor is that we all know from change programs, if you don't have the executive sponsorship, you can't go very far in these initiatives, right? Because they're costly. They're, you know, it's not like, you know, we're buying a box of pencils. I mean, this is kind of like a new highway that we could basically build off for the future. I want to introduce you now to 4 areas that we think, you know, the most significant use cases are going to be more prominent. You could even use this little framework very, very easily, and we'll have a poll on this by looking at your business processes and just stepping back and saying, where are our initiatives? You know, if you took all of them, did them on an Excel spreadsheet, how many of them would be focused on, you know, smarter R&D and forecasting, so really projecting outcomes. That's a whole field of predictive analytics. Or are your investments in AI more focused on the production side, mainly on production, enabling practices, ERP maintenance, and some more of an overlay on those existing structures? Or is it on the promotional side? There's a lot of innovation that's gone on in marketing. Just in the last 3 years, we've started to really take the sales functional area and rip it apart using AI, and that's the space that we certainly are in, is on the sales side. And making sales professionals far more productive and effective with guided AI selling. But on the provisioning side, really enhancing the user experience. So obviously in the world as channel leaders, you are involved, you know, whether it's in your own organizations or externally, on how to make those ecosystems connect the dots. One of the challenges always in channels is the fact that sometimes you cannot see some of those processes, right? So different channel ecosystems are at different stages. I'd call it about digital integration, convergence, and that's a complexity that can create disconnects in terms of, you know, call it AI agent unilateral transfer ability. Now we're going to do another poll. Just want you to pause, think a little bit. Hope you're eating something. It's around that time of the day if you're here on the East Coast. But there's 4 areas that I mentioned, and I would just like you to clarify, where do you think, if you know where your investment dollars are in the organization that you have, and if you don't answer, then I'll kind of know you don't really know, you know, where you're maybe at. And it might not be a fair question now that I know there's only about 20% of you that are actually involved in AI. So let's take a pause while you start to work on that next poll.
It also might be interesting, Cindy, to understand, so we've got the one or two areas, the areas that they'd be interested in. And so for people that are looking at questions at the end of Cindy's presentation, this is a great way to ask questions around one of those four areas if you'd like some more insights or maybe where some companies are getting started. So if you've got some questions, if you're not engaged, now might be the time to write down a note for a question at the end of our session today.
Thanks, Corinne. And I'm just looking at the results, and they're still coming in. But what we can see is that 50% of the audience are aware of two areas, and 40% no areas. But so the good news is there's some experimentation. I'm hoping that in the Q&A side, maybe people even can just put into the Q&A, this is what you're doing, and if you want, we can just share that acknowledgement back. I'm now going to move to talk about some examples. The first industry I thought would be fun because we all can understand retail, right? All of us shop. I have a daughter and a son, and it's that time of year. It's the holiday season. But there's some amazing things going on in this sector and a lot of creativity, particularly in the facial recognition software area, where we are now applying virtual agents to basically greet us personally, anticipate our orders, provide directions. When I step back and I look at where some of this research is going on, it's in the early stage software companies right now where they're building product solutions, not necessarily mainstream Canada by any means yet. But with the recognition of the research that Canada's done on deep learning techniques, which is, taking a recognition of an object and then training it from every single angle, getting many the same images, so a cat's a cat, but you have to train that AI agent on thousands of images. It's not like one image initially, especially if you want angles. But that whole phenomenon, we're going to experience in our lifetime. Just imagine walking into Starbucks and simply having, there may just be a robot there. Those are certain jobs that can automatically be, more easily applied with robots, and it will know me right away. It'll recognize Cindy, except if I'm wearing wigs. I think we can have some fun with these AI agents. But I'm trying to be humorous at the same time, just to give you a vision of what I see happening. We move to the personalized shopping experiences and what possibly is going to happen there. I think when we think of the mobile devices and then the sensor technology, and as I'm browsing through the store, basically my phone, just like with Waze, will guide me to where that, purchasing item is. And at the same time, it will probably show me 5 other competitive products maybe that if I'm in a mall that I could go to with the pricing and still guide me, and that's great for me because I always get lost in when I'm down in Yorkdale, for sure, if you're familiar with that particular mall. But it gives you a sense where we're going to start matching profiles with sensor beacons, smartphones, but also AI to surface up and guide me. It's the guidance aspect that AI is going to play out in real time. On the computer vision side, we do have some amazing work being done now by Amazon with their acquisition of Whole Foods, and where they're working with drones that basically, I'll be able to order online and then have my drone basically deliver me my produce. There's a highway project going on in LA right now in the sky to basically zone off the first drone highway to basically start bringing goods and products. So when you think of Amazon and their strength as a technology innovator and then moving into, the food industry, for sure we're going to have some major developments. So I find particularly the retail industry one of the most exciting industries. And it's not that every other industry is not exciting. It's just that that's when we'll really feel the change because it'll be so pervasive. On the healthcare side, I don't think there's been a week that hasn't gone by in the New York Times, the Globe and Mail in Toronto, the New York Times or Gazette that basically don't talk about some aspect of healthcare. The remote diagnostic side, where I've got my Fitbit, now we know today it's monitoring simply the number of steps that I'm taking. Maybe it's also monitoring my heartbeat. But as this technology advances, it will start to correlate with the temperature that's rising in my body. And imagine that correlated with a wearable computing T-shirt that knows that my stress levels are too high, so it automatically releases a chemical, a vitamin that's already integrated into my T-shirt. So the whole area there of real-time monitoring health, but also the red flag, and maybe, given I've got someone to Manulife, obviously, where is that data going to go? Is that going to impact my insurance, right? There's some real interesting conversations to have in terms of where does this data go to, who can see it, and what's the risk in terms of privacy. What I'm excited most about is I do believe AI will eradicate cancer, Alzheimer's, and many other serious diseases because the amount of data that these systems can process to figure out these, and we've all had people in our lives that have been impacted. But being able to detect disease diagnostics with AI is a huge field, as well as forecasting behaviors of patients. Now let's move to, I just want to share a little bit about our little experience that we've had within our company where we've been ingesting big data sets from large multinationals globally and mid-market companies primarily, because you need a lot of data for AI. So it's not a small business play, at least with the problem use case that we're solving here. Our objective is to predict the future of sales. And right at the beginning, with often limited data points inside or outside the CRM, and we're getting now to levels of 99% accuracy on any simulation scenario. So, it's an interesting time where the technology, right at the get-go, and I haven't done anything, gives me the flags. No, Charlie, you should not proceed here. Here are the reasons why. Now, the human obviously has to make a call out. Am I going to listen to an AI agent, or am I going to proceed? But immediately the cost of sales trackers can be invoked. So that's the world we're moving through, right? So that's one of the reasons, if you're following the research on B2B sales, the predictions that often a lot of B2B sales roles will be replaced by robots. Maybe we'll save that for another session. But I am fully confident now, and I'm a sales gal. I'm a former Xerox sales leader, rose through that organization, former Accenture partner, and I was just really curious how far these little AI algos could go, and now I know, oh my gosh, they are so smart, and now I'm very much focused on the leadership side and the efficacy side, and putting my energies there. I also get excited, as you can probably tell. I want to move my conversation to the role that channel chiefs can get started. First, I'm thrilled that the organization, or many organizations, are recognizing that so much of our business comes from channels today. And so those of you that are full-time in the channels, you have not just the leadership responsibility, but I do think that one of the gaps we have in the global market is that the board directors in most of the companies, both privately and publicly held, they're not talking about the new highway that's being built all around them. And they're not asking the right questions. Often they don't have anybody on their boards that has any background in advanced digital technologies, AI, advanced robotics. And so as a result, the conversations are very much in the here and now and not really being totally alert to the tsunami, or the tidal wave maybe is a better choice of words, that's coming their way. So I'm very much an advocate of the need to educate our boards and the C-suites on AI, and also to have that as part of the strategic plan. We're at the stage right now where every single line of business needs an AI strategy. And the implications for companies will be quite catastrophic, I'm predicting, without that kind of leadership and get moving and moving quickly. This is going to be the fastest sea change in the history of mankind. It's not even comparative to electricity. it's moving that fast. The other key factor is to step back and find out who knows about AI, who has expertise in AI and machine learning and data sciences. You know, the insurance industry and financial services have a number of these experts because they got started early. Like in the insurance industry, they got started early on the credit scoring side, right? So their actuarial sciences, you know, really value analytics. So in many ways, they've got roots and good statistical knowledge. Now it's a matter of overlaying that depth, et cetera. But there are many, many companies that just don't have any of these skills. And the scary part, and this is just me speaking from my heart right now, and sometimes I'm good at that and sometimes I get myself in trouble, but I really do worry about the IT organizations who now, because it's in vogue, have now moved from being a BI expert, business intelligence, to now advising everyone that they're an AI expert. The technologies, the approaches are fundamentally different. So we really need to be careful that we are not being, suffering fools gladly here. I've already touched on the data quality and completeness. I think it's imperative that we understand where we're at. But the most important point is, are we really ready as an organization, you know, to really handle these kinds of conversations? We have to have an appetite for emergence and resilience. We have to have depth in data sciences and machine learning areas. And I really am a big proponent of innovation emergence labs. Many large companies have these in-house, right? But not every company can afford just, you know, like acting like a little incubator. And the other thing is, you can't build AI alone. There's a lot of diverse experts that are needed. Just want to move the conversation along. Each of these pathways, I think we could go down and spend literally drain one slide. I am trying to introduce as much content as rapidly as I can to get to the Q&A. The best coaching I can give today, if we don't have a chance to talk ever again, is anybody that talks about AI, just simply say, what are we trying to do? What is the problem we are trying to solve? And just be crisp and clear. And if it doesn't make any sense, that probably is telling you something. Because if you can't articulate a specific problem or a pain point, then you don't know what type of AI tool or technique or method. And it's not an area where it's just one method. We now literally have hundreds of different methods and techniques in terms of the different disciplines that could be applied to solve a different use case problem. So it's not, a simple box solution. And if you go down the wrong rabbit holes in solving problems with the wrong approaches, it's not a good thing, because you may have created an AI algorithm that's really not as smart as something else you could have produced had you gone down the other rabbit hole. So just, again, there'll be a lot of buyer bewares, and, one vendor's approach isn't necessarily going to be the best approach either, right? So be crisp and clear on that front. We've already talked about the quality, so I won't talk about that. I'd reinforce the importance of the use case. And, at the end of the day, if the organizational culture, and you all know your organization, isn't open, isn't collaborative, isn't resilient, is willing to help collaborate cross-functionally, because AI definitely requires a lot of eyes and thought to do this well. So those are some of the foundations there. I wanted to move to more of my closing comments. Let me open up for questions. First, in terms of the lesson, what I want to talk about, which I'm hoping I've convinced you by now, or if you weren't already convinced before the call, it's not something that's going away. I mean, I remember when we were going through the e-commerce craze, you can imagine the conversations. Maybe some of you remember them. Many of the conversations, well, no one will go online for shopping. That phenomenon is not going to happen anytime soon. Others were saying the whole retail experience was going to 100% die. So you get all these views and these contrarians, and usually it comes down to someplace in the middle. But for sure, this phenomenon is not going away. There's just far too much investment. I mean, every newspaper in the world that's any major has articles consistently and continually, and obviously the media plays a big role in that, in making us aware of what's happening. I have mentioned about the need for ethical leadership and thoughtfulness. There are many movements going on right now. I don't have the time to talk about them all. I'd be glad to, if anybody has a question there, be a little bit more clear later. And, you know, we've got some new content coming out, too, with Ernst & Young to talk about the importance of this. So ethics is going to be a really, really important area, as well as the regulatory side, about handling of our data and what constitutes public access versus private access, and do we really understand the implications, and we have to think through those scenarios. And we have to think very much about worst-case scenarios, and we're not doing enough of that thoughtfulness right now, because there aren't regulatory risk frameworks on AI in the market that are law or regulated. And I think the last point is, you know, really kind of a no-brainer, the importance of hiring folks that are really trained in these disciplines. And don't assume you can reskill and retool your entire IT organization. I don't think that's a good idea. In terms of the impacts on AI adoption, not a surprise. What do we always see as one of the top areas? And I've looked at enough research recently, you know, and after a while I could just change this to maybe this robots are coming and we'll have the same thing. But, you know, the fear of change, all right? Humans, you know, we need comfort, and we need to be acknowledged. Not everybody's at the same life cycle of being able to adopt change. And on this area, not a surprise that that's rising its head again. Also, you know, many organizations don't have the right skills to implement and manage. And, you know, obviously these things happen because, you know, you would expect. They're transformative, they're disruptive. Now, moving to my concluding comments, and then we're going to open it up for questions. I think the key point that I want to mention is on the channel chief side, that you have a major opportunity to really drive a competitive advantage. You know, you see things from many diverse ecosystem and stakeholders' perspectives, so you've got that panoramic view that many don't, right? And so I always find that channel resources, you think in all directions all at once. You need a new word for your vocabulary. You could throw in qua verso, means facing in all directions all at once. And that's really what channel leaders do. You have to focus on so many different dimensions and to do the sense making. What I'm excited by is the fact that AI is being consistently, and I've experienced this myself now, that you can actually increase your top line revenue in a company by 5 or 10% using AI now. Like I really sincerely mean that. We've experienced this in a number of companies. Also, companies, by the way, that are investing in AI are increasing their revenues in comparison to their peers, right? So there's a high correlation, again, between competitive advantage, competitive edge by investing earlier and proving it out and getting the kinks out. And those companies that are mature, those 10%, they are recording higher revenue growth. They've made the leap. They've crossed the chasm. They're making a difference. So I think channel leaders, you know, you're in an incredible position to look at all of your ecosystem channels and those levers and obviously focus on the ones that are the highest revenue producers. So I want to say thank you, everybody. I'm always love this part of the webinar. It's much more fun than listening to me is to hear your questions, and hopefully I can answer them. I'll do the best I can. So I'll just turn it over to Corinne to lead the Q&A side and guide me a little bit.
Great. Well, thanks, Cindy. That was just amazing. I learned so much from your session, and I have to say I'm really excited about what AI can bring to businesses today and how it can differentiate. You mentioned about, that competitive advantage, and if people are looking at how do I differentiate with my customers or as channel chiefs, we have to look inside the organization, outside to our various channels and partners and alliances, as well as customers, so that, multiple degree view. So I'm really excited by what AI can bring to us as leaders in our organizations. So let's jump into some questions because we have quite a few coming in. So I'll start with the first one, and that's my organization analyzes detailed customers' data against defined criteria and industry expertise and provides strategic advice to the organization. So there certainly should be, so this person says, there certainly should be plenty of AI opportunities. So the question is, what kind of available software products or tools can help them as a starting point? So I guess they're looking at software tool sets that could help with as they go down their AI journey.
Well, I think I would need more clarity on the question. So if this individual wants to put in a build, there are different answers to different industries, right? There are different answers depending on the business process. So I could rattle off leaders, and I'd be glad to do that, but I need more clear insight to bring value to the question. So the first thing I would say in terms of where leadership is again, what the use case are you solving? So, and I don't have that context, but I would say that, IBM have done a really good job with Watson Analytics, and if you can afford Watson, so I'll underscore that. I do think that Google is doing some amazing things in this area, and I would not hesitate to recommend exploring some of their technology solutions. Obviously, if you're solving a sales and marketing, you certainly could talk to us if I understood more. Might be able to give more counsel. There's kind of an aspect here. It all goes back to what is the problem you really want to solve, and is the data inside your environment today, or is it outside? Before you worry about software, figure out that first. And I'd be glad to talk to whomever offline, and I could probably give more clear guidance. I find sometimes people zip too far, too fast to the technology, and an understanding of the data, where it's all at, and how much they can solve it themselves is probably wise to then filter down the right solution providers. But I'd be glad to send you my email and we can chat more offline.
Great.
Question?
So speaking of data, so there's a kind of a two-parter to this question, Cindy, is one, is it possible to use AI as a tool to improve data quality, which this person feels that humans instinctively know? And second, can AI serve as a guide to determining whether data is complete, which is not something humans instinctively know? So it's two halves to the same question, which is, I think, a brilliant question, actually.
Yes, there are, I'll give you a concrete example. In our environment, because it's easy to talk about things that I know that work. When we do a prediction on an outcome of whether an opportunity or an account health, it's all driven by AI. We also have an overlay on the data quality, and I would call it, look at it as a view on the accuracy of the AI agent in relationship to the data quality. Sorry, just need a glass of water. There are there's many startups now that are starting to build tools that ingest the process logic, but then they clean it out with AI. So yes, that movement's well afoot.
So that's great. So and we can follow up as well with information regarding companies that do this, to the individuals that are asking that question. So the third question is around, you mentioned, which was really interesting, Cindy, was around ethics, right? So the next question is, how do you protect yourself and your company from unethical companies? And this is, AI or not, but if you kind of keep it at that AI theme, what are you, seeing out there in research from companies?
Well, first, Canada is behind in this entire area, so I'll first say that. There are right now some lobbying that's starting to rise up in the Canadian market to basically alert our security regulators on the needs. European market is more mature here. They've got more advisory councils working a new regulatory framework. It's something we can follow up with examples. As I mentioned earlier, we're working with Ernst & Young. Excuse me, it's just a bit of a cold. We're working through a number of educational videos to basically advise companies. So there's no question that AI is out ahead of the regulatory, security, maybe not as much security, cyber, well, yeah, I guess so. On the security side, there's still AI that's working very, very hard to out-manipulate any cybersecurity infrastructure. So we're kind of at a bit of a perfect storm right now, I would probably say, in all sincerity. What you can do to answer the questions I would ask any vendor or supplier are pretty simple. I would say, number one, how is your algo or your AI solution? What are the methods that you're using? No one will give you their algo mathematical logic because that's IP. But if you understand the methods, then you know how deep they are. So let me give you a few examples. And this is where we fall down in a lot of companies, unless you're a little bit more mature and sophisticated in data sciences. In the example I'll give you is a black box company would come in and advise you, they would talk about how they can produce an outcome, reliably, etc. But they never expose the statistical patterns clearly that are going into the calculations and the volume and the data quality visualizations, etc. So you really can't really see what's going on. You get an outcome. So those are kind of black box vendors versus showing you, this is the prediction, this is how I derived it, these are the attributes that were in that, here's the snapshot that's been going on every 5 seconds, 10 seconds. So as the evolution of the calculations, you can see the parameters and maybe even the source somehow without seeing the mathematical algo. Because we're into an area where there's IP involved, right? So there's some discussions that there will be audits going on in regulated industries and a movement where black box companies will have a harder time. So how do you protect yourself? I think number one is talk to customers that have worked with them before. It's probably a no-brainer, in the sense of who have you worked with before and make sure that you've had some, good counsel. But those are a couple of ideas, but this is a really loaded area. I mean, Monk Business School now at Rotman has a new program around ethics and AI. One of my friends is actually doing her PhD in that area. But there's going to be a whole new career for individuals interested in this question and helping to guide organizations. So very thoughtful question. Thank you. Other questions?
That's all the questions that have come through. There was some interesting insight from someone around, suppliers and customers asking for AI-driven offerings and that they appreciated your insight. Given the high AI adoption seems to be in automotive and assembly where supply chains and customers do have a huge impact. What are your thoughts on, you mentioned retail for sure, and we can see that as consumers ourselves. What other industries are you seeing, kind of the next 2 or 3 that are really embracing or in that planning phase for AI?
Well, there's a lot going on in telco, in the telecom industry, right? being able to do matching on upsell, cross-sell insights with AI, right? So based on where a customer buying profile is in their journey life cycle, what other solution sets, might you want to surface up? So often there are AI agents doing that in the telco industry, and telco, the three top industries worldwide where most of the investments going in, again, are high-tech, financial services, and I missed the other one. What was it? Tell I'm a bit tired. High-tech, financial services, and media. So in terms of other industries, on the automotive front, the automotive industry has been very advanced in robotics, right? Which are, the software underpinnings in there have some AI structures and machine learning structures, right? So, I see a lot of innovation going on across the whole assembly chain in terms of telematics and AI in cars. It's an exciting area. Also, cars that are, we're testing out with Google and I'm not sure if the Telus is going to have eventually a complete release, but the automotive industry has been very, very progressive for quite some time in that whole, value chain. There's not an industry that's not untouched by AI right now is, I think, the simple answer. You'll find, we could go into every industry and probably talk about a specific example. It's pretty pervasive. They're just all moving at different paces, right? The market.
Well, Cindy, I do have a question specifically on food and food processing, right? So do you have any examples of AI being used in that industry? You mentioned Amazon and Whole Foods already. Is there other areas within, kind of food processing?
Yeah, there are in the sense of taste. Taste is big business, right? And so there are organizations that are, building clinical, I'd call it AI agents that can taste food, so that's more of an earlier kind of idea. In terms of food processing, it'll be more in probably the manufacturing process of the foods and the production aspect of could those processes be, moved to wherever you've got humans providing any of that capability, or analytics overlays are very, very smart, right? Could also be on the customer side, the consumption side of certain types of products and what's happening in the market on interest, and then real time shifting the mixes, right? Which is an interesting thing. We do our predictions on the goods and services. What about if I could take all of that knowledge of the World Wide Web and kind of anticipate and then change the mixes on the fly? So real time, your inventory mix is driven by AI agents. So, I'd have to do a little bit more digging, but, I know there's startups doing this kind of research. I know there's certain companies funded. There's CBI Insights that are very good in providing a newsletter highlights by different industry. The other one is Okapi is an example in the food and industry and retail. They're out of Israel. They're actually a partner of ours too, but they basically took on a restaurant, fairly large restaurant chain, and it was all around how AI could inform different manufacturing aspects through really chatbots, right? So it's a simpler example maybe than what I was talking about on the chemical engineering side or the consumer consumption side. So yeah, I think it might be a fun thing to do is actually, I'm just writing this down, is to take different industries and just say, here are 3 best practices by industry. So we'd be glad to take that on, Karine. One of the things we're doing for everybody on the phone is shortly there will be an announcement with IT World Canada and our company and another CATA where we're building out the Canadian AI directory. And, so the different use cases we're trying to get profiled in there. But, I'd be glad to come back with more specifics, but those are just some things quickly off the top of my head.
Great. So we have one final question, and they called it a basic question, but I don't think it's basic at all. With all of these, terms in IT and companies trying to figure out, the question is, what would you say are the fundamental differences between BI, business intelligence, and artificial intelligence? And I think that's a perfect closing question for you, Dr. Gordon.
Good question. The simple answer is BI is backward thinking and AI is forward thinking, right? So business intelligence in the analytics area, we can visualize the data in the past and we can pop that up into nice visualization, trend lines, graphs. The average ROI in a BI project is about 85%. In AI, it says, thank you, Mr. BI or Mrs. BI, for all of that. It's that data. Thank you very much. But it does use cases that are forward-looking and predicting future outcomes. Now, there's some techniques in BI that will take some minimalistic approaches, but it's not based on machine learning logic. It's not based on deep learning logic. So it's different tools and techniques, but they do extend. So, BI is, if you've got good, robust BI practices, you're probably ready to start overlaying AI, because hopefully you've got better data than most, because if companies have mature BI organizations, they're often more ready for the next trip. But the technologies under these software tools are fundamentally different.
Great. Well, but it was a great question as companies are looking at the connection between their projects that they have in IT. So data, BI, our AI, etc. So we'll close off there. So Cindy, thank you very much for taking the time today to spend talking about insights and AI in the channel and sharing your thought leadership. I thought it was great. For the people on the phone, thank you very much for participating. We'd love it if you would take an opportunity to complete the online evaluation with not only feedback on this session, but ideas for future sessions that IT World Canada and C4 may run. So we'd love that. And then everybody who has attended the session today, watch for an email, because there will be a link in there for the recorded session and all the information that you saw today. For those that were interested in the Canadian Channel Chiefs Council and our membership, don't forget to visit channelchiefs.ca, where you can learn more about that organization, our board members, the Pathways program, etc. And then thank you to everybody. We hope you found today's session informative. Should you have any questions following the webinar, feel free to contact us directly. You can see Mandy's information that's on the screen, so she would be able to take information directly on C4. Until next time, when we have our next webinar, I wish you all the best for the holiday season. And again, thank you very much to Dr. Gordon from SalesChoice for being with us today. Appreciate your time.
Thanks, Corinne. Great being here with everyone. Enjoy your day.